What the hell is wrong with the New Orleans Saints? Throughout this video, you're going to see Chris Olave mossing this DB, okay? Because Olave is the only good part about this New Orleans Saints team. He's the only consistent part about this New Orleans Saints team, most importantly. Chris Olave is carrying the Saints team. He's the only bright spot there is. Nobody else has been doing anything all year. Tyrann Mathieu has been a huge bust. However, he does have the only 2 interceptions of the New Orleans Saints. His play has been pretty terrible. Alontae Taylor has the most missed tackles on the team. The team has the worst turnover differential in the entire NFL. This is not a very good football team at all. I would say this is, one of the worst. It's probably the top 10 worst. There needs to be a certain level of accountability that is not there. And Dennis Allen is responsible for that. This is Dennis Allen after the game today. I feel like we played the game the way we need. I feel like we played the game the way the game needed to be played. There's just some plays there that we need to make. What does that even mean, Dennis? I feel like we played the game the way the game needed to be played. No! 2 fumbles in the red zone by your best player is not the way a game should be played. That's not how this works. This team is undisciplined. It's been undisciplined since week 1. You almost lost to the Falcons. You're a miracle comeback away from being 3-8 right now, or 3-9 right now. Without that week 1 win against the Falcons, that was extremely lucky. You'd be 3-9 right now, and you would be last in the NFC South, and you would have a bottom 5 team. It really all started when Dennis Allen chose to start Andy Dalton over Jameis Winston. That's when the season officially was over. I called it. I'm a Saints fan. I'm an avid Saints fan. When he chose to start Andy Dalton over Jameis Winston, the season was over from that point. I don't care. Jameis Winston played terrible early in the season, and that I blame that on the injury. He would not have been half as bad if he weren't injured. If he didn't have 4 broken vertebrae and a ruptured tendon in his foot, he would not have been half as bad. Saying that Andy Dalton performed better than Jameis is not really a statement at all. Like, that's not a line that's hard to cross. If you have Jameis in there right now, you got shut out today, 13-0. Okay, the only good part about the team today was Chris Olave and the defense. The defense played well today. Penalties. Chris Harris Jr. sucks. He sucks. It's simple. You're putting Chris Harris Jr., who's 31 years old, you're putting him on young wide receivers, and you're expecting him to make plays that simply he can't make. And he gets 2 of the biggest penalties of the season that rid the Saints of an Alontae Taylor pick, almost pick 6. He was within the 25 or 20-yard line, 15 yard. He was within the 15-yard line. The Alontae Taylor pick. It brought that back. That was the biggest penalty of the year. There is no bigger penalty than that. And then on your second to last drive, you have a 1st and goal from the 4-yard line, and you have Taysom Hill lined up as a wide receiver, and you run 4 straight plays: 1st and goal, 2nd and goal, 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, and you expect to make it in against the number 1 defense in the league. Oh, well, they have the number 1 run defense, so why would they even run the ball? You have Taysom Hill with 4 tries to get 4 yards. You're telling me that's not going to happen? What are you doing, Dennis Allen? What are you doing? Dennis Allen called the plays in the end zone good plays. Says they aren't easy to make, but points out the team needs to make them. Wow. That is the vaguest statement I've ever heard in my life. Every team needs to make plays. That's how they score. You got shut out for the first time since 2001. 2001. If it weren't for those 2 fumbles in the red zone, you win the game. And a missed field goal by Will Lutz, you win the game. Against a really strong 49ers team. That should go to say something about the defense, how the defense played today. You are a Will Lutz field goal 2 touchdowns away from winning the game 17-13. And there's just no excuse. There's no excuse for it. And if you can't have an accountability, you want to blame everybody else for the problems that you're creating, Dennis Allen, there's no hope for the season. I fully expect the Saints to finish 5-12. I think they get one more win, maybe 2, 6-11. At 6-11 at most. I don't expect them to. They're gonna beat the Buccaneers. They're gonna beat the Falcons, and that's it. They're not gonna. That's it. They're not gonna. They're not gonna beat anybody else. 6-11 will be their final record, and you're gonna give the Eagles a top 6 draft pick in the 2023 or 2024 NFL draft. Because of you, because of the head coach, because of you, because of your decisions to make. Whenever we use Taysom Hill, we win the game. Whenever we run the ball at all and use Taysom Hill, we win. The stats back that up. When the Saints have over 100 rushing yards, they're undefeated this year. They're undefeated this year. Kamara? You gave him, 8 carries today, and he had 14 yards or something like that? 7 carries for 13 yards in the fourth quarter. That's less than 2 yards per carry against the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. Not only is that bad on Kamara's part, that's bad on the team because you're literally not giving him carries. 7 carries throughout the entire game. He's the best player. He's the top 5 running back in the NFL, and you're giving him 7 carries. Two games ago, you're playing. Who are you playing? 2 games ago. You're playing the Steelers. I believe it was the Steelers. You're playing the Steelers. And you have a 3rd down, and you're going to take a deep shot. So who do you put it on that deep shot? You put Kevin White, a man who's caught 3 passes in the last 5 years, on a go route. You put him on a go route. When you have Marquez Callaway on the sidelines, you put Marquez Callaway on the sidelines, and you put in Kevin White to take his spot. Kevin White is the biggest wide receiver bust in the past decade. He has been absolutely terrible. He's not lived up to his number 7 overall pick for the Bears in 2017. He's not good at all. And you're telling me that this man has a better chance of catching a deep ball than Marquez Callaway, the man who carried your team last year. He was the offense last year. Like, Kamara was the offense last year, and Marquez Callaway was the passing offense last year. Are you telling me that Kevin White has a better chance at making a play than Marquez Callaway? I don't see it. And I don't know how you could be that oblivious to it. There have been so many things wrong with the Saints team over the entire course of the season. The very first mistake was starting Jameis Winston in week 2. You should never have started Jameis Winston to week 2. You knew the extent of his injury, and you started him week 2, and you furthermore injured him. Second mistake was playing Michael Thomas when he shouldn't have played. Yeah, he absolutely dominated AJ Terrell in week 1 because he is him. He's playing through an injury, but the fact of the matter is you'd let him play through an injury when he wasn't supposed to play at all. There needs to be accountability for that. There needs to be a certain level of accountability that's just not there in the team. And the bulk of it is Dennis Allen's fault. But he refuses to take the blame for it. And now you're sitting at a 4-8 record. You're 3rd in the NFC South, and you're half a game ahead of the Panthers, who beat the worst team in the NFL today, the Denver Broncos, by a score of, 27-3? Yeah. No, score was 23-10. You are half a game ahead of the second worst team in the league. And there's no excuse other than you're a terrible coach. Terrible head coach, you need to be fired. There has been literal petitions about firing Dennis Allen, and that's gotten thousands upon thousands upon thousands of votes to get him out of the Saints organization. Dennis Allen will be gone at the end of the year by next season. And you don't have a first round draft pick. You can get one. There are ways to get a first round draft pick. The answer is Sean Payton. LA is a couple losses away from getting rid of and firing Brandon Staley. And the only other place he wants to go is Arizona. Arizona will fire Cliff Kingsbury. If Sean Payton wants to go to the Cardinals and or the Chargers, you're firing Cliff Kingsbury, who is one of the worst coaches in the league, for Sean Payton. And you trade Sean Payton to the Cardinals for 3 first-round picks and a couple million in cap space, and you have yourself set up. That is the answer. There is no other way around it. You're not going to have a first-round pick without it. And you're coming up on some of this very old defense last year's. Cameron Jordan will retire by the end of next season, probably. One of the best defensive edge rushers in the league. You have Marshawn Lattimore, who's slowly becoming worse and worse as the years progress, and he's been injured this year. You have Michael Thomas on a massive contract extension that you signed a couple of years ago, who's here until 2025, I believe, and he has $60 million guaranteed. You have to restructure all of these contracts because your debt is going to be extremely high at the end of this year, even with the increase to the $200 million cap space, I believe it was, or whatever it is. You restructure those. This rebuild is extremely simple. If I'm the Saints, fire Dennis Allen. You get Brian Flores like you were supposed to last year before he filed that lawsuit against the Miami Dolphins. You restructure the contracts of Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore and Ryan Ramczyk, and you get yourself millions of dollars in cap space so you can afford to draft in the second round somebody like Hendon Hooker, if even available, because of his ACL sprain. You draft the highest end QB you can in the second round. Hope for the best because you're not relying on Jameis Winston anymore. You're getting rid of Jameis Winston. If he doesn't play this year, he's not going to play next year. Jameis Winston, your last option, and you don't have a first round draft pick. If you didn't have a first round draft pick, then that's where your luck might be turned around. But even then, you have to rely on that young quarterback to do well in your offensive system, and it's not going to work unless you fire Dennis Allen. This is a very bad football team that will not make the playoffs, that I had going 11-6 before the season started because they had the talent to do so and still have the talent to do so. But the coach is terrible. The coach is absolutely terrible. Who would have thought that the best defense in the league last year would have collapsed, or one of the top 3 defenses in the league last year would have collapsed this year to be a mid of the pack team defense, 12th overall, 22nd in rush, and you're 8th in passing, you're 12th overall. Who would have thought that the worst passing offense in the league last year would have been a top 5 offense in the NFL now, or top 10 offense in the NFL? The defense collapsed. Defense wins games. The defense hasn't been there. With defense, you'd probably be 6-3 right now, 6-4. Probably be 6-5 right now with the defense if it played really well. You would have beaten the Bengals. You would have beaten the Steelers. There's 2 extra wins for you, and you would be on top of the NFC South right now. You'd be tied for first with the Bucs. But of course, it's the NFL, so not everything's perfect. But there is a simple rebuild to this team, and its first step is firing Dennis Allen. You have to fire Dennis Allen. Then you have an aging 30-year-old Michael Thomas next year who's going to play. Probably going to get hurt again. because the training staff is going to let him play on an injury. Fire Dennis Allen or demote him to defensive coordinator. See what you can get from Sean Payton, and that's your rebuild.